Super Mario Bros. Is well known for saving the gaming industry back in 1985. While most of the NES's early success was mostly due to the fact that it came with a robot and a fucking gun, most people realized those stuff kinda sucked after they played the game that was bundled with it. Super Mario Bros. / Duck Hunt. While Duck Hunt was mostly used to show off the NES Zapper's capabilities, nothing against Duck Hunt, I just never really played it and don't really care for it. Mario Bros. Was what made most people realize that console video games were worth giving a shit about, even after E.T. destroyed most of their hopes and dreams, and the word soon spread out, and the NES would go on to sell over 60 million units. While all of this isn't needed all, the question remains, how good is Super Mario Bros. Nowadays? Is there any reason to go back to it, or should it just stay as a relic of the past and never actually touched again? Nowadays, there are many ways to play Super Mario Bros., but for this video, I'll be focusing exclusively on the NES version. It's also worth noting that most new releases of the game, and stuff like the crappy Nintendo Switch Online service, feature some cheats like save states and rewinds. I do not blame anyone for using those. Heck, at many points you probably would be better off using them in this game. Play the game however you want to. But for today, I wanted to play the game as authentically as possible, so I refrained from using any cheats not in the original 1995 version. And with that, let's start the game. When you turn on the NES, you get put right into the title screen. Most of the story could only be found in the instruction manual that came with the game. Kinda sucks if you got it second hand, but I doubt anyone would be playing Super Mario Bros. For its gripping narrative. Luckily, nowadays we got the internet, so let's get into the story and see if it's worth any attention. One day, the kingdom of the peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turtles famous for their black magic. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks, or even house-fair plants, because you can't have mushroom murder in this Christian game, damn it! And the mushroom people fell into ruin. The only one who can undo the magic spell of the mushroom people and return them to their normal selves is the Princess Toadstool. Unfortunately, she is presently in the hands of the great Koopa Turtle King. Mario, the hero of this story, maybe. Wait. What do you mean, maybe? This is a part of the story summary. Why would Mario not be the hero of this story? Unless... is this 1985 game maybe trying to imply that Mario isn't the hero? And that we're actually the bad guys? Trying to beat the crap out of this Koopa Turtle King thing we don't even know that much about? Because if so, holy crap! There are some pretty freaking big implications in this game's narrative. That... or I'm just looking way too deep into some weird translation issue or something. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, Mario, the hero of this story. Maybe, I don't know. You ask him. Hears about the Mushroom People's plight and sets out on a quest to free the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa and restore the fallen kingdom of the Mushroom People. You are Mario! It's up to you to save the Mushroom People from the black magic of the Koopa! So yeah, the plot is pretty whatever aside from some of the implications it throws. Weirdly enough, no mention of Luigi. I guess the two-player mode just isn't canon. Sorry to all of you little brothers who thought you were actually doing something worthwhile. Obviously it was kinda just thrown together, so the stuff Mario does in this game could actually make sense to us human creatures who bought this game because it came with a cool robot. By the end, Mario saves Toadstool, but the ending is pretty ambiguous. We don't see anything after that. There aren't even any credits, it just cuts back to Wonder Swan. So in that way, I guess it leaves something up to your imagination, which I like, but I don't think this plot did enough to warrant this kind of deep analysis. But enough standing around, let's get into the meat of things, the actual game. At the time, the gaming scene was dominated primarily by arcade games, where the main objective was to get a high score, so that you can brag to your friends about it and feel like your pathetic life has a little bit of meaning. But in Super Mario Bros. There is a much more defined beginning and end, which makes the game feel more like an adventure, rather than some toy. I mean, it still has a score system, but I don't think anyone really cares about that in this type of game. I mean, my final score was 518,350, so if you really hate me that much, and you want to prove that you're an objectively superior person, go ahead and win my record. I dare you. And as for the visuals, the game looks pretty alright in my opinion. It's definitely a product of its time, but I think it has its charm. Small Mario sprite is as iconic as it gets. Not Big Mario, he kinda just looks weird to me. Sorry for offending all of you big Mario fans out there. And many of the levels do look distinct. However, it has its issues. Sometimes they reuse level themes with new color palettes and it tends to look pretty off. 6-3 in particular. I get that it's supposed to be a snow theme, but it always looked way too muted to me. But other than that, while dated, I still overall like it. The soundtrack is one of the more well-remembered parts of this game. It doesn't have a lot of them, but all of the tracks are some of the most well-known in gaming history. I do think some of them, like the Underground theme, can be a bit repetitive, but there's no denying that this is some iconic and well-put-together music. My favorite would probably be the main theme. I know, generic answer, but hear me out. I love how it just screams Mario, even if I have a hard time hearing it, without the Mario lyrics from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show pop into my head, which I actually unironically really like. I mean, they're pretty damn catchy lyrics, and the dance itself is fire! But this is getting off track, so back to Mario the game. Along the way, you'll find power-ups, like the Power Mushroom, which will make you bigger, allowing Mario to break blocks and take one extra hit. The Fire Flower will let you use projectile to defeat enemies more easily, but you can only get it when you're big Mario. And the Rare Power Star, making you go invincible for a short period of time, allowing you to go on a power fantasy before being swiftly thrown back into reality. You can also get coins along the way that when gotten 100 of will grant you an extra life, because capitalism. Many of the power-ups are hidden in pretty out-of-the-way locations. Personally, I'm not a fan of this, as it just kinda makes you blindly jump around everywhere and hit every regular block, hoping to dear god that you'll get that power-up or extra life. I know many people already know about them, but I'm not a fan of just having to know stuff to make the game easier. If you know what I mean. Whatever, forget about it. Just moving down to the worlds. The game is split into 8 worlds with 4 levels each, for a total of 32 levels. Most of those are pretty damn short and can be finished in only a minute. Which I'm fine with. Super Mario Bros. Is a short game, and I like that. I mean, if this went over for like over 60 hours, I would probably just quit it around the halfway point, because my god, I'm not playing Super Mario Bros. For 60 hours. But yeah, we have 4 different level types. First off are the grassy overworld levels, which have become pretty standard among these types of games, and are what most of the game consists of. They have many variations like nighttime levels, hill levels, oceanside levels, and purgatory. Next up are the underground levels, which take the theme of a sewer. After all, Mario is a plumber, so it makes sense that there would be a sewer level as something that's iconic to Mario. So I'm fine with Mario having sewer levels because it's thematically appropriate. At the end of each world we have castle levels, which are a bit more puzzle focused and always end up with a boss against Bowser, which you can see if you burn him to death with fire instead of lava. And finally, we have the most unique levels in the game, the underwater levels, where the controls entirely changed to accommodate the lack of gravity, mostly just for how slow they are and those goddamn bloopers! But I don't really hate them that much, and there are only 2 of them, so it isn't a big deal breaker for me. But how are the levels exactly? Well, the level design itself I find pretty hit and miss. The first 4 worlds all have pretty damn solid level design, albeit pretty easy. World 3-1 is an infamous trick you could use by bouncing on Koopa shells at the last staircase, to get fast 1-ups. It's pretty tricky to pull off, but I would recommend you doing it. I find it funny that the devs apparently never guessed anyone would get that many lives, so the game just glitches out and gives you random symbols as your extra life counter after a certain amount. I'm not even sure what many of these sprites are even supposed to be used for, and while it doesn't bother me, it makes it pretty nerve-wracking because you never know when you might run out of lives soon. I mean, I guess technically you could memorize what these symbols mean and how close you are to dying, but I think I have better stuff to do with my life. So back to Final Fantasy XIV I go. But anyways, after World 4, the levels start to get a bit more random. They tend to kinda throw random stuff at you and they tend to be pretty annoying. And sometimes there are some pretty annoying gimmicks, like my least favorite levels are 4-4, 7-4, and 8-4. Surprisingly enough all castle levels, huh? All of them involve going through the maze. All of them involve going through a maze that require you to go through the correct paths or pipes to move on, otherwise the level just loops. It's complete trial and error and can get pretty frustrating, especially with the time limit in mind. The later worlds also tend to reuse a lot of level designs with only a few alterations, which can get pretty repetitive. Like, 5-3 is just 1-3 with bullet bills, and they say modern games are padded. But I actually think the difficulty is pretty damn well balanced. Like, each world is harder than the last, which is pretty impressive. And the difficulty also goes up in a pretty damn steady rate. That is, until you reach World 8. World 8 invented difficulty spikes. It is way harder than the rest of the game. The levels are mostly just gauntlets with enemies and pits everywhere. As well as barely any power-ups, which means one hit and you go down. And what makes it worse is that if you run out of lives, you have to go all the way back to 1-1. Now, there are actually 2 ways around this. The first are the well-known warp zones. Hidden in certain levels are warp pipes that take you to different worlds and can be used to skip many of the game's levels. These are pretty neat, but I feel like they cannot defeat the purpose if you find them in your first playthrough and just skip the whole game. I mean, they're cool for speedrunning, but other than that I prefer to just play all of the levels when I play through the game. And the second and less known is the continue cheat. By simply holding A and pressing the start button on the title screen after you get a game over, you'll be back at the beginning at the world you died at. I'm guessing they didn't give you any continues to artificially increase playtime. Thankfully, the continue cheat is there. And while looking continues behind the cheat code isn't really good game design at all, I'm glad I know of it and don't have to deal with that issue anymore. But even with the cheat code, World 8 is still brutal, because if you die at the end of 8-4, you'll still have to go all the way back to the start of 8-1. This is why I recommend using the Infinite Life Streak. It makes this part of the game a whole lot easier. And even with it, it's still hard, because the levels of World 8 don't have any checkpoints. So if you die right at the end and do some stupid mistake, you're going all the way back to the start of the level. The enemies are pretty typical. Most of them just kind of go back and forth and you have to jump on them or burn them to defeat them. However, my favorite enemies in the game, by far, are the Hammer Bros. I know, hot take. The Hammer Bros are the closest Super Mario Bros. Gets to actual combat. And I really like how many ways you can go about finishing them. Wait for them to jump and go under them, try to jump over and avoid them, try to jump on them and kill them, hit a block below for an easy kill if possible, or just burn them if you have the Fire Flower, which rewards you for not getting hit. I actually have a lot of fun going up against them because of how fun it is to avoid them. And I really disagree with all the hate they get online. I mean, come on, they have a cool character design, look at them, they're like chickens. Bowser is the only real boss in the game, and he acts a lot like the Hammer Bros. Like them, there are many ways to defeat him. You have to fight him 8 different times, but I honestly don't have a problem with this. Because each time the battle arena is different and the fight is pretty short on itself. And also, later on, he starts throwing hammers like a madman and I just find it really funny for some reason. I do kinda wish beating him would require a bit more than just hitting the hammer at the end and being done there and there, but I don't mind it. After finishing the game, you get the reward of being able to play through the whole thing again, but this time, the Goombas are replaced with bodybuilders! I mean, I'm pretty sure that's someone's biggest dream, so they'll probably have a blast going through this, but I personally don't think it's worth a second playthrough. Now, there is one major part of the game that contributes to its challenge, age, and popularity today, and that is the controls. Mario is incredibly slippery, which makes many of the hardest jumps later on much harder than they would be otherwise. Many people nowadays heavily dislike the controls of Super Mario Bros. And while I'm not the biggest fan of them myself, there is one thing about them I absolutely love, and that is speedrunning. With how slippery the movement is, it is incredibly satisfying to just run to the end of levels without stopping for anything while dodging enemies and finishing really quickly. It is the most fun I had with the game in the places I could pull it off. And I also think it's the reason it's such a large speedrunning community nowadays. Being able to blaze through Super Mario Bros. In under 5 minutes is amazing. And while I don't think I'll ever be good enough to attempt anything like it, I still have a lot of respect for the community. With all of its different categories, it's nice to see it keep growing even to this day. And that is all I really have to say about Super Mario Bros. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, mostly due to its outdated design, clunky controls, and difficulty spikes. But I personally really had a fun time going through it, and would recommend it to side-scrolling fans as some important piece of history. Video games nowadays would be very different if it wasn't for this game. And that is why, regardless of what I said about it, I will always have respect for it. And I think the fact that it's such a large following even to this day just goes to show how important and revolutionary it was for so many people. And I think that's kinda incredible.